The stakes have never been higher. The competition has never been stronger. 42 drivers, 25 rounds. One will be crowned champion. Competition, commitment, excitement. This is Lionheart. Tune in Wednesday nights on the iRacing Esports Network to watch the cars and stars of Lionheart, the Lionheart IndyCar Series presented by First Medical Equipment.
This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
The ring is the great equalizer, a track so long that for new drivers, as much time is spent simply memorizing the track layout as it is trying to be fast. Survival will be the name of the game. It can certainly shake up the points race with small mistakes costing drivers a DNF in a matter of seconds. Who will conquer the most challenging track on Earth? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch round 2 of the Weekend Warriors, and you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing channel and the iRacing Esports Network. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Adam Young. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Crackers Ambrose, and is using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Adam, it's a lot to memorize, it's a lot to tackle, but man, I love coming here.
Yeah, you know, this is one of the, prettiest racetracks in iRacing right now. I mean, a lot of what we see on some of the more modern tracks right now started right here as far as development. But the track itself, of course, that's going to be the story of the day. 154 turns around the Nordschleife here for today, and that's 12.94 miles of just danger everywhere. And you see that a lot out there for today, because these SRFs, they're going to be a handful for this afternoon on a slick track. But how well do we get to know Nordschleife? Well, we don't get to see it too often, but we got a little Mazda that's going to take us around a few of the highlights.
All right, we've got Amjad Yaman in the GSRC MX-5, so let's do a lap around the Nürburgring. The Nord curve will have a tricky entry with the downhill causing some understeer. Drivers will really want to ensure they get the nose tucked into the apex. But we're going to jump ahead and look at the rest of the track, since an entire lap would be too long to cover. High Oaks isn't too difficult in the MX-5, but the exit requires every ounce of momentum you can squeeze out of the car. You'll be flat out all the way through fluke plots until the Swedish cross. You can stay on the gas through this fast sweeper, but the important thing is to line up your braking for Edinburgh. This is a good potential passing zone, but once again, square off your corner exit to maximize your launch down into the foxhole, where speeds will get pretty high. Later on, we hit Oudener Forst with its scary fast kinked entry. Continue to slow the car down as the track veers right, then swing the car wide and late apex the left-hander. Get on the power as soon as you dare, or else you'll leave yourself vulnerable to the run up to Metzgefeld. Further down the hill, we come to miss, hit, miss. Follow the name for the apexes and you've got the correct line. Keep the car to the left and do your best to keep it stable under braking into Defense Valley. It's easy to get over-eager and plow the car into the armco to the outside, so be wary of how deep you send it in. Jumping ahead, one of the most critical turns you'll come across is Bergwerk. You'll be flat to the floor climbing uphill for a long time, so make sure you come off the corner carrying your speed. Up at the top, you'll run into one of the most unique corners in all of racing, the carousel. It's banked, but that banked part is only one car wide. Hold the throttle steady around the bend and then floor it so that the car comes out just as the banking ends. Now let's look at Wipperman. It translates to Seesaw Man, and it used to be much bumpier than this. It still retains its difficulty with the way you need to pound over these curbs. You get a short rest before the right-hander where you'll be lulled into thinking it can be taken faster than is possible. The crest sends the car very wide, so pay heed. Down into Ashbrook, this bend is best if taken as two apexes to help line yourself up on the left at the exit. That's because it immediately transitions into the right-hander, which dumps you into Brunchen. Another distinct corner on the ring is Flansgarden, where the car gets a bit of air on entry. The uphill bend portion of this corner needs a little lift and a dab of the brakes, but you can mostly power through it. Then there's the tricky Swallowtail. Lift to slow it down through the right-hander and try your best to get the car settled. The track suddenly switches back into a crested left-hander that pays dividends if you can press your foot to the floor early. Coming up is the Mini Carousel, which is a shorter, faster version of its big brother. You can be a lot more aggressive in this one than the larger one. Drift the car back to the left and you've got the most critical turn of the circuit. Gallow Hill needs a small lift, but get to the gas quickly and be smooth with your inputs. Keeping your momentum up here is needed since it'll come back to haunt you for nearly a mile. As you exit the corner, you finally hit the needed rest of the Doriner Hohe. At the end of this long straight is Tiergarten and then Hohenrad. Get to the brakes where the Armco ends and then try to get it woed up for the right-hander. Hug tight to the curb on the left and then lightly hit the brakes for the oddly named Turn 13. As you come off this final corner, you've now finished a lap around the Nürburgring.
That's a truncated lap around here at the ring. It's much longer than that in these SRFs, over 8 minutes long. Now, the Weekend Warriors are brought to you by the Hallett Race Shop. Hallett Race Shop is located at the Hallett Racetrack near Tulsa, Oklahoma. They're a full-service SRF shop, an authorized customer service rep for SCCA Enterprises, and owners of the Hallett Racetrack. You can find more information at hallettracing.net. Big thanks to them for coming forward this season to support the Weekend Warriors. Now we've got the one round in our belts at Interlagos, so let's take a look at the points, starting with Spec 1. Jerry McAreevy leading the way, Steve Elson following him, and Miroslav Jurasek down there in third. Now, among them actually was one of the Spec 2 drivers, but he is not competing for Spec 1 championship, so we haven't included him. You'll see our leader in Spec 2 when we get to that. Huda Ludus and Jason Perry round out the top 5. Let's go to Spec 2. Adam, what are we looking at there, and what is effectively the amateur championship?
Yeah, Donnell Fitterer is leading that point standing right now. Carter Cunninger is running in second. Trying to look down the running order to see if those guys are here today, and I actually I don't think I see either one of them on the list here for today. So C. Love is out there, the United Kingdom driver. He'll be running today. He's actually sitting 8th on the provisional grid right now. Todd Hansen sitting in 4th in the standings, and Bob Kern in 33 points back in 5th.
Fitterer is joining us today. He's currently sitting in his 7th on qualifying.
There he is. There he is.
Yeah.
You know what the bad part about that is, Joe? I am looking at him on my screen as I was talking, on my own personal screen. And I'm like, where is he?
It happens. Let's go over the race details for today. We are on round 2 of this 12 race season. The setups on these cars are open. Now, here's the big key. In real life, these cars usually don't do pit stops because they've limited the fuel cell here in iRacing. They will have a scheduled pit stop. Now, it's going to be a very limited window considering the length of this track. It is a 40-minute race, but they've also limited the number of laps. It should be 5 laps no matter even if they didn't, but they just wanted to ensure so that nobody gets a little confused as to how long this race is. The points go from 100 for a win down to 25 for last place, no matter how many cars show up. They also have updated the incident points this season. You lose 3 points now for every 10 incidents that you earn out on track. They have upped that because they now award a point for fastest lap. They also have 1 spare car. I suspect, Adam, that today we are going to see a lot of drivers use that spare car to try and finish this race. But before we get to whether or not people use their spare car, just want to mention that this race is brought to you on the iRacing Esports Network. If you want to catch more of the Weekend Warriors, you can subscribe to IESN by clicking the big red button that says subscribe. Then you'll get all of not only the Weekend Warriors, but all the World Championship Series, the official World Championship of iRacing, on your YouTube feed. So don't miss out. Make sure and subscribe. Looking at the qualifying, we've got a number of drivers who seem to need to hurry up and try and get a timed lap in. And even though we've got 6 minutes left, Adam, you still have to hurry because that's less time than 1 lap.
Yeah, I mean, the lap times right now, the leader, provisional pole sitter right now is David Gaspers, and he's sitting at an 8:05, and it's 8 minutes and 5 seconds to get around here. So you got to hustle around. And then, so you've got guys out there right now. Let's actually, if we can, take a look at Daniel Sadro. And it's just, he's got to get his lap in. And so his car is just absolutely destroyed. He's doing the best he can to make sure he's able to maybe try to improve upon his time, which he's not going to be able to do. So that's just the kind of pressure there on these guys in the qualifying session out there right now. And he's not the only one with a bent-up race car in qualifying. So you brought up the part about having 1 faster pair out there today, Joe, and that's going to be so key. But you also want to be able to try to bring that car back around because the tow times, they will bite you since we only got 5 laps out there this afternoon.
Good news is Sadro does have a time on the board. He's sitting in 3rd as expected. He's just going to abandon this qualifying. There's not much more he can do. Donald Fitter, our leader in the Spec 2 Championship, going to come around to complete his final timed lap. Should not be able to come around for another one, I don't believe, in time for this qualifying. I'll have to check to see if they will get some spare time after their hot laps. This is Esanumi in 17th, currently 2nd to last in the qualifying times. The Finn running on a 8:28.6, and this is very slow around the final corner, so not sure if Esa is abandoning his lap. That is indeed a slow one for Esanumi. Let's go to McGill, currently sitting in 11th. And this is definitely not a hot lap for Jim McGill from Ohio. Now, if you're new to this series, one thing to watch out for if you're wondering, how do I tell the difference between the Spec 2 and Spec 1 drivers? Well, Spec 1 are all 100, numbered 100 or below, and Spec 2 are 200 to 300 in their designation on their car. So you can see Michael Shaw, the number 55, he's a Spec 1 racer. Right now, our highest, our pole sitter on Spec 2 is Donald Fitter, very closely followed by C Love, only half a second. With 8 minute laps, half a second is actually very, very close around here.
It is, and that's a pretty similar gap that we see in even higher powered cars around here. It's just, this is a tough track, and when you have multiple corners, it really spreads out the field, and that's what you're going to see out there for today. Now, once these guys get going, though, I mean, the cars themselves, even though they got those Ford V8s under them, they're only topping out at about 120 miles an hour in places. And so the draft is going to be key out there. So once we get into race trim, I think you'll see these guys a little bit closer than what you're seeing on the qualifying times right now.
Watching James Tabor And actually, I've got my eyes on Flavio Saturnino, who does not set a time. Still waiting on a time for the number 79 car. There's a few. Him, Baslav, Paul Hickey, Edward Doherty, Andrew Spicer, Matt Solblum, Gary Wobold. All of these drivers do not have a lap time in, and we've only got, about 25 cars out there today? It's a relatively small field for this series. Jason Perry, who sits in second, he is currently out there running what looks to be in the latter part of the lap. Yep, he's coming through Hohenron right now. Around the final corner and across the line. Unfortunately, this one not going to count for Jason Perry. So we will not be able to improve. Take a look at Patterson. This is up in one of the most unique corners of the track here, Adam.
Yeah, and it is so bumpy. And these SRFs, I mean, it's really, really hard to keep that car on the bottom of that banking through those bumps. And Patterson looked really smooth going through it, so maybe he'll be able to improve his 8-minute, 22-second time. But even then, I mean, hey, it's a tough track. I mean, these guys, he doesn't have a lot of places from here on out the rest of the lap to really improve that time. In fact, there he goes. He's sliding right off. Able to keep it out of the wall, but picking up the incident point there is going to negate that qualifying attempt.
Oh, sad to see for Patterson. In the meantime, I'm trying to see if there's anybody who's close to finishing a lap. Looks like nobody is, so we might be set. We'll find out in about 40 seconds. First, if we do get the extra time, Esanumi will be the first one to cross the line. He's currently still sitting down in 17th on the timing and scoring in the number 217 car. He's just heading up out of Bergworks through Kesselchen, just as we see him there. Let's see who's coming in behind him. Daniel Sadro's giving chase on him. Then you've got Matt Solblum, Jim McKill still out there, Flavio Saturnino, James Tabor, Vaslav, Jason Perry, Antonio Reese are the only cars out on track.
Looking at Sadro here, he's already close enough that I think he's up. Nope, never mind about that. I was just getting ready to say he'll try to use some of that draft for Numi, but not going to happen. Numi pulled off.
Yep, Numi's just going to abandon the lap, and they will be able to finish this hot lap, looks like, which is probably a relief to many of these drivers. Daniel Sadro, who sits in third, he's still trying, so either he still needs the practice, or he thinks maybe he can bump himself up one of these two positions ahead of him. Take a look at Flavio Saturnino. See where he's running right now, the Iberian. See, I think actually coming through, is that Bergwerks right now? Looks like it is. He's coming up through Kesselchen himself, so a little ways back from the likes of Daniel Sadro. And typically in this series, Adam, you do see drivers try to work together to use the draft to get a good lap. This track is so big, I think it looks like most drivers just said, screw it, I'm just going to try and get a lap in, let alone trying to get tricky with it.
Yeah, I mean, you try to complicate it too much, you're going to miss that window. Because, you know, if you're familiar with iRacing, you know how qualifying works. You always have a little bit of a burn down time, if you will, and we're already in that. So anybody that fails a complete lap now, they're not going to get another shot. And you've got to be able to complete that lap in that burn down time before the session's just going to go to the race session. So, and that only has about 10 minutes left. So, you know, pretty much if you're not on a lap already, you're toast.
So this is Vaslav, the Benelux driver, coming through Bravery Corner. Actually, Daniel Sadro is getting close to the end of his lap. I believe he's in the Beloff S's, one of the trickier corners. Oh, no, he's in Flansgarden right now. right on board. Now we'll come up to the Beloff S's. This is one of the trickiest corners coming up. Swallowtail. Our director always likes to tease me because he's usually my crew chief. It's such a fast entry to this right and then a left, and no matter what car I'm in, Adam, it scares me.
Yeah, and especially these SRFs. They don't got a lot of downforce. They're very, very light on their wheels, so to speak. And that little quick change in direction right there can upset the car if you're not careful.
Through the mini carousel, and then some of the last few corners of the track before you hit the long Dardinerhoa. This is through Gallows Hill, where you really want to get the power down onto the main straight, and then you get to relax for a long time, because as was mentioned, these cars only getting up to about 120 miles an hour as they stream down the Dardinerhoa towards the last chicane.
See, Joe says you get to relax, but can we ride on board Daniel here real quick? And I want to see if you can get a sense of just how bumpy. Like, the track looks smooth, but it is bumpy, and you're still trying to hang on to that car, even going down the straightaway, which Daniel looks like he's doing a pretty good job of. But there's a lot of suspension travel there still, and a few places on bite you, particularly coming up here, where you've got to dive once again. One of those quick changes in direction. You're going to dive to the left real quick, and you got to come back to the right, and you're doing it under full throttle, 120 miles an hour through there, and then you got to get on the binders hard for the last part of the track. But there's a couple areas here, even though you're on the really long straightaway, that you could lose time if you're not careful.
Well, relax is relative at this course, I suppose.
Yeah, there's a reason they call it the green hell.
And Sadro's going to abandon his lap. Is not happy with it. Doesn't think he's able to improve. The next one will be Matt Solblum, but we've switched over to Saturnino, the Iberian. Is trying to figure out what part of the track he's on. We can tell that Solblum on the long Dardinerhoa through Antonius Beach, easily flat out kinking these cars without too much speed that they'll gain. Whenever you see mentions of bridge to gantry, well, that's the bridge that they're talking about when they talk about lap times around here. The tourist version of this track uses that as the start line, or so close to there as the start line, I should say.
Bucket list, Joe. Bucket list.
Same. Very much so. I intend to get there and drive it someday. Matt Solblum across the line also does not get a lap. This is going to be a long and painful day for a number of drivers. Saturnino on board with him. He's coming through to the end of his lap. Weaving his way through the final corner. Let's see what he's got underneath him. He does also need a lap time, and he gets one, an 8:16. That's going to be good enough for 9th place mid-pack for Flavio. James DeBoer going to be the next across pretty quickly, an 8:12.3, which bumps him up from 5th to 4th. Nicely done by James DeBoer. Baslav just getting ready to finish lap, but it's looking a little sloppy at the end. The number 25, a little wobbly coming through Tiergarten and Hohenrad, and also sliding his way through the final turn. And that lap, unfortunately, will not count for the number 25. Jason Perry going to abandon his lap.
So easy to pick up an incident point somewhere here. That's part of the reason why qualifying it's a different animal here for sure.
Antonio Reese, unfortunately, is not able to improve on that 8:15.2. Do we have anybody else? I think Matt Solblum already finished his lap, did he not? Yes, I believe he did. So that's going to be it for our qualifying. Let's go through our starting order. It's going to be David Gaspers on the pole, and Jason Perry is giving chase in second place. Gaspers, though he was in contention last week, made a critical error and unfortunately wrecked out partway through the race, hence why we didn't see him in the top 5 in points. Daniel Sadro will be starting in 3rd, and James DeBoer will be P4. Then it's Michael Shaw with an 8:13.5 on his lap time to get him into 5th. Fred Desai starts P6. Antonio Reese will be 7th, with Donald Fitterer starting in 8th. Flavio Saturnino will be 9th, and C-Love rounds out your top 10.
Yeah, in 11th position on the inside of row 6 is going to be Steven Elson. Alongside him will be Jim McGill. Dominique Barreau will be starting in 13th position alongside him. Christopher Patterson. Ramon Regaldo will be in 15th. Alongside him, Bob Kern. In row 9, you'll find Jeff Jacobson. And then Issa Numi in 18th position. Tom Gradwell will be in row 10 along Paul Hickey. And then on to row 11, Joe.
It'll be Matt Solblum starting behind him with Andrew Spicer coming home in what I believe will be 21st. We're still waiting for the clock to tick down, so we're not getting their positions quite yet since they haven't put a time in. Gary Wolbolt behind him, Zachary LeVay, Boslav, and Edward Doherty, the last of the drivers in your grid. We're hoping that they're going to advance the session here in a moment. We've still got a couple cars out there warming up, trying to take advantage of the extra time, but all the qualifying times have been put in around here. Now, we were talking a little bit before the race about the lap times and kind of how these cars are around this track. One of the things we talked about was the draft, Adam. These cars known for producing draft races at most racetracks, but God, there's so many straightaways around here where I don't think they lift for quite a while.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to be seeing these guys peak out at 120 miles an hour a couple times, and of course in the draft should be a little bit faster than that because you're not maxing out the gearing in this car. So I'm expecting there to be quite a bit of drafting. I mentioned that a few minutes ago that you're not going to see the separation in times that we're seeing in qualifying as long as the guys are able to stay in somewhat of a pack. So drafting is going to play a big role here, and especially going down that back straightaway. I will admit, I've never called an SRF race here before, but I've done a couple of Skip Barber races in some of those lower powered open wheel cars here before, particularly with like the Absolute Beginners League and such like that. And going down that back straightaway, I've seen the lead exchange hands 3 or 4 times in one lap alone, one sequence, going down that back straightaway.
It's going to make it fascinating with these drivers and this race today. Only 5 laps that they're going to take part in around here, but that's going to be that 40 minutes worth. So you'll get your money's worth around here, that is for sure. Still waiting for them to continue on. I have to admit that I'm also excited, honestly, about Hallett Race Shop joining in on sponsoring this season because not just because, I mean, it's another SRF shop getting involved here in the real world with virtual racing, but they're actually going to have I believe it's one of the SRF championship races. Let me double check my wording on that so that I get that correct. But they will, the SCCA Super Tour Series is going to have a race here. Only 11 races throughout the U.S. take place over the course of a year, and they are one of the special 11 tracks that get to host that. So kudos to Hallett Racetrack for getting them on there. Wish I could go hop over. I stay pretty busy these days, but Tulsa's not... Well, it's quite a drive, but compared to the rest of the U.S., relatively close to me.
Well, Tulsa's where I want to be. I got my Texas Tech Red Raiders playing there here in a couple hours. But, I mean, that's a 9-hour drive for me, so that's even still a lot.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I would hop over there for that. I mean, I would.
Those over in Europe and elsewhere in the world don't always realize how big the U.S. is. Tulsa or Oklahoma is literally the next state over from Adam, and when he says 9 hours, that's not an exaggeration. He really means 9 hours.
I could go 12 hours and not leave the state. You know, people don't realize how big Texas is. That's true. I mean, like for me, for COTA, people are like, "Oh, you're in Texas. You can go over to COTA anytime you want." No, it's still 6 hours away from me. The same with Texas Motor Speedway.
Indeed. So these drivers running long laps here. Well, we have long drives over here in the States as well.
I think some of these guys much rather drive 6 hours and try to go around an hour around the Nürburgring today. It is a handful around this place, and I think you're getting ready to see that.
Yeah, a lot of curbs that do not agree with this car. You mentioned the bumps as well. I really think attrition is going to play a major part, and it is going to shuffle up the finishing order. All right, qualifying is over now. They do have a rolling start, but thankfully, you don't have to wait behind the pace car for the full lap. They start here on the Dottinger Hoa, work their way through Hohenron in turn 13, and then they get going. Off to your right there, I mentioned the tourist version. Well, that's where you start the tourist laps. They have those little gates off to the side where you pull in, you come through some cones, off you go around on your lap. But Adam, if either of us ever get there, we might not want to push as hard as we do here in iRacing. You actually do get fined if you damage any of the Armco or the surface off the racetrack with the grass and whatnot. The tire barriers.
And I've seen enough videos on YouTube to know how many people do that. So it's I don't want to be one of those. But it's a goal in my life too in broadcasting, being on TV and everything. Don't end up on YouTube, and that would be the same if I ever went around the Nürburgring.
Yeah, I would probably take my time, at least for if I get multiple laps for my first few laps, and then maybe I'll try and up my speed a little bit. So we wait for the last of the cars to come onto the grid. I think Andrew Spicer, the final one that we're waiting to show up. There we go. The Porsche pace car going to lead them away. They getting ready to run for 5 laps around this circuit. You might get a glance as well here that they even have a castle on the inside. If you're not familiar with the Nürburgring, a literal actual castle is poised in there. Might be able to see it from on board here. It's off to the right a little bit. Unfortunately, I'm not spotting it from here. We'll get a glance at it later on in the race.
So, do you know how to say green flag in German?
I don't know flag. I think it's Grüne.
Hey, I was only born there. I don't speak the language.
You actually were born there?
Yeah.
Oh. I did not know that about you.
My dad was stationed over there at the time.
Fascinating stuff. You learn something new every day. Let's learn who's the fastest around the Nürburgring as the Porsche pace car takes off. Green flag is out before they even get to the final corner. David Gaspers tries to get on the loud pedal. So does Jason Perry. They immediately leave the rest of the cars behind as it's already 3 wide towards the north curve. This is not good because that's at the front of the pack. If they tangle, they somehow sort it out. The front 2 are already
still
single
3
file.
wide. Sadro backs out though. But that start hurt Sadro. And he was the one that dropped. Oh, already, Regan. Who's that green purple car there? Upside down on his lid.
Car's desperately trying to get out of the way. That was Flavio Saturnino. And I believe C. Love.
Michael Shaw was the one that went up on his lid. Still away, though. The front part of this field got away cleanly ahead of that. So we still got Gaspers, Perry, and Tabor, and Fred Desay as your top 4, I believe.
Yep. Then you finally got a gap. You mentioned Daniel Sadro, who lost out big time. He's got about 1.7 seconds. Now the draft is pretty big, so he could yet still reel them in as long as he can stay within that gap. The question is, will he be able to hold that gap? He's actually got Donald Fitterer in his tow behind him, sitting in 6th. Now we're starting to see cars spread out a little bit. Oh, but I think we had another accident. Oh, we did indeed. That was Bas Slob. Now, how did this happen? Oh, miscommunication coming out of Flugplatz into Kottenborn.
Yeah. Thankfully, only slight contact there for him. A little bit of Armco damage.
Antonio Reese, the other one involved in that. We're going to watch it one more time here.
And Antonio Reese has just decided to go ahead and call it a day.
Yeah, just didn't realize there was a car to the side. Both of them came together and some big contact. Unfortunately, that's going to slow them down on top end speed at the very least.
We don't have too terribly much going on track right now, so why don't we go ahead, if we can, Sean, go ahead and go back to that first lap incident there in the first couple of corners. Take a look to see also what happened with Michael Shaw, who started this race in 5th position, and it just all went terribly from there for him. So he was already around backwards right there. and upside down. Show it to you again. We're going to ride on board with him. This is going to be a heck of a ride, Joe.
You know what it looks like to me? He caught the inside curb. This will give us a really good idea. On board with the Canadian. He's side by side. Then he gets it single file. Watch the right side. Oh, yeah, look at that car bounce. That was, unfortunately, Hotzenbach.
And I think, was that Flotterino that ended up T-boning him right there and sending him for the ride?
I think it was. I think indeed it was. That caught a lot of cars out. I'm going to watch Flavio from above. Oh, maybe we won't. So the Iberian driver with a lot of damage. Here we go. Wow, it is already a traffic jam. Flavio's trying to get out of the way of everybody, and then all you see is smoke and cars. Amazingly, in all of that, only Michael Shaw, Antonio Reese, and Andrew Spicer are out, and Spicer was a did not start, so 2 cars finding themselves victim to the ring.
Yeah, but a few guys will have a long day, though, with some of their damage. But they do have that faster pair, and they do have a pit stop they have to make at some point during this race as well. Up front, though, David Gaspers is trying to run away right now from Jason Perry and doing a pretty good job of it. In fact, I think he's out of his draft right now.
Yeah, 2.5 seconds between them. But really, this is what we want to watch. This is Tabor and Sai still close together. Coming up through Bravery Corner.
And this is your battle for 3rd and 4th here. And here's Desai. He's going to go and try to take a look, see if he's able to do anything with it. I think he's going to pull back in line here for at least a moment.
Yeah, they're not too far behind Jason Perry. I have a feeling these two might not want to battle too hard. Instead, just use the slipstream to try to catch up to Spider-Man. Now they hit the carousel, that bumpy, long left-hander you talked about earlier. Can anybody make some time through here? Maybe time off of there. Oh, Spider-Man can. He spins. Oh, and he gets hit by Tabor. The bumps claim another one.
And trying to three-wheel it in one of these cars just doesn't work. That's what Jason Perry just found out the hard way. And those bumps really were sending up both front wheels. I think at one point were off the ground.
If we could get an onboard from Fred.
And it's still going on. He tried to get a car back straight and got into somebody else. I couldn't see who.
Oof, there was the onboard from Jason Perry. What if we could get one from Fred Desai, because he did a fantastic job of avoiding it. This is Perry trying to turn around now. Yeah, there's just no space to go. He didn't want to use the toe that you were talking about, and it made things just a little bit worse.
He wasn't the only one that ended up having problems getting through there. Dominique Barreau ended up spinning out through there as well. It is a rough part of the track, and these suspensions in these cars do not hold them down.
So let's watch from Fred Desai's view. And we might have to back up a little bit more. Yeah, it looks like this is after the incident. There we go. That was Tabor making contact. So unfortunately, we won't get it. This does promote Fred up to second, but a monstrous 10 seconds behind David Gaspers now. And Daniel Sadro has caught up to the back of him.
Yeah, so Sadro able to recover from that bad start and some of the chaos there right at the start, already recovering on lap 1 to run third. Right back where he started. Desai, though, he's starting in 6th, running 2nd. And don't forget, behind those two is Donald Federer. He started in 8th and now finds himself in 4th position.
Also leading the Spec 2 race right now. He was our pole sitter in that Spec 2 championship. Number 211 running 4th, which is where he finished last time. So I'd say that Donald Fitterer is pretty happy with the start of this season. We're going to watch the run. Let's see what the draft has for these three. This is the fight for second place, with about half a second between all of them when they came to the Dottinger Hoa. Sadro starting to gain on Desai.
This will be a good opportunity. Maybe play a little bit of leapfrog here and try to gain some time up. I mean, David Gasper's just running away with this thing right now. But they also got to worry, though, about just behind those three is Steven Elson. And if they don't play together, Steven Elson can catch up to him pretty easily, I think.
Little bump draft from Desai on Sadro to give him that last little oomph, since he doesn't have enough time to leapfrog. And they slow the cars up for the last few corners. Sadro just decided to wait back there. Excuse me, Fitterer decided to wait back there, rather. I wonder if he's going to play some fuel games potentially with these two. Going down to 8th, Bob Kern close to Edward Doherty. Got almost kind of little two-car tandems throughout the field. Oh, but Doherty's coming into the pits. We could see on that car, actually, he does have severe damage. This is not going to be late enough that he could go to the end, I'm pretty sure.
Doherty, when Jason Perry was trying to get himself straightened out, Doherty ended up hitting him. So that's where his damage came from, and it was pretty significant contact on the outside of the carousel.
Yeah, I think we're seeing the cars who could limp around coming in now, because Saturnino also joined him. As Doherty takes his spare car and returns. Oh, Paul Hickey just had a problem coming out of the final corner, which means he's got to limp his car completely around this track. Let's watch what happened with Paul, number 234, finding the final corner a little bit difficult.
Just kind of took it a little bit wide, and then the momentum just kind of carried him into the inside concrete and just tapped it. So, you know, that's the kind of contact error. Is that right front suspension okay? Is the wheel cocked? And looking at him going through turn 1, still a little bit of problems there. So that's he's going to have a long journey around here.
No doubt about that. Let's go back to that 8th place battle we were talking about before. Kern and Dominic Bureau still together. Bureau giving chase on their way towards the Swedish cross. Up and over the crest. And you got the braking for Ehrenberg. You can try it past if you want, but he's going to stay behind. In fact, they're being chased by 10th and 11th. That is Jacobson and Regalado, who seem to be using the draft to good effect to close in on them.
Yeah, so potentially a 4-car battle here setting up, and we're getting ready here in just a few minutes to get into a part of the track where during the first lap, Dominique Barreau did a half spin, actually full spin in the carousel by himself. So you got to be thinking that he's going to be remembering that when they go through that here in a little bit.
Staying right into the tire tracks of Bob Kern. Outenauer Forest has some tall curbs for these cars, but they all avoid them well. Keep from bouncing it around, but Jacobson is now firmly on the back of Dominique Bureau. Dominique doesn't seem all that interested in trying to overtake quite yet. He's been staying tucked up underneath Kern without really attempting anything serious. Kern currently second in our Spec 2 championship, too. That first lap really spread the field out.
It really did. I mean, your difference between first and second right now itself is 11 seconds, and then you've got even bigger gaps. I mean, this battle here that we're watching right now, we'll take Dominique Barreau, for instance. I mean, he's running 37 seconds right now behind your leader, but they're all running in packs at the same time. So those accidents spread out the field, but we're still seeing the pack racing that we thought we would see.
Now here's what's fascinating. If we could jump up to second place, Sadro's starting to pull a gap from Fred Desai. It is now 1.5 seconds between them. And if anything, it's Desai and Fitterer that are close to one another.
Yeah, just as we left that battle, though, Jeff Jacobson ended up looping it. So that is now a 3-car fight up back there.
Let's take a look at what happened to Jacobson. Good news for him is that he's got a long gap back to the next car, Doherty.
Yeah, and I don't really think he hit anything. It was just kind of a lazy spin. He had room to get the car straightened back out and everything. So, but still, though, I mean, that hurts the time and the pride, and he still lost a spot to Zachary LeVay.
That yellow car you saw narrowly missing him was Ramon Regalado, who gets promoted to 10th through that. We come back live. He's just about within the slipstream of Bureau and Kern, who are working together up through Kesselchen. Bureau's going to try and swap positions and take the lead, though.
You say that they're working together, and then Bureau makes that move, and then you can just see Regalado, once Bureau pulled alongside Kern, how much time Regalado was able to make up. Now he's already almost right there on top of those two, just because Bureau tried to make that pass.
Indeed, the two cars punching the hole in the air gave him a big lockup from Kern on their way into Stahlstrecke.
I don't think.
That.
I was gonna say I don't think Kern's Regalado saw that lockup from Kern and took the high line going through that corner, cost him a little bit of time. And watching these guys go through the carousel, Dominic Barreau does find who is that car there on
That's
the side?
McGill.
That's McGill.
He had a problem on his way through the carousel. Let's see if we can find a replay of that.
And he ended up looping it around again right after that and decided to go ahead and take the tow.
He must be damaged from something a little bit earlier, because he didn't hit the wall.
No, it was after the spin on the second time after he I think he hospital wobbled into the Armco. Oh, Dominic Barreau really loose. Oh, Dominic Barreau noses it into the Armco.
We're on replay at the moment. We're watching what happened to McGill. There we see the spin. Now let's hop over to Bureau. Don't need to go backwards since this happened after. He's the number 208, and he just took a tow, so he's now last in the field.
Yeah, he nosed it in the Armco so hard, his suspension was damaged. He was cockeying pretty bad. You'll watch him here, and all of a sudden the car hits a bump, gets upset, he tries to correct. Might even be a little bit further up than that, but it'll be pretty much the sequence that you're getting ready to see.
Looks like this is plunging down through Vipperman. Ooh. And the car vips itself into the wall. Who was that just barely missed him? That pretty much ends Dominique's day. So we go back to our leader. The gap now 15 seconds between Gaspers and Sadro. And you could say that he's got a safe race in his hands, but I think from what we've seen from these other drivers, there's no such thing as a safe race at this track.
Well, there's so many places that you can get into trouble by yourself, completely by yourself. I mean, we've just already seen it with a couple of guys here today. That David has to still be on his toes. This is not a gimme race at all. I mean, this is one track where even an 11-second lead does not feel safe to me.
I'd agree with you on that one. So he comes to complete another lap. Now let's see if he actually comes in this time, though. This is the end of lap 2. I think they can do the end of lap 2 or the end of lap 3. Oh, and he does not come in this time. So what about Sadro? He's just now approaching that pit entry. He's also going to stay out. Again, if you're just joining us here at the ring, it is a 5-lap race for the Weekend Warriors. I'd almost say this is the biggest test of the season for these drivers. It's either going to be a drop race or it's going to help someone out tremendously. We do have some takers for the pit. Steve Elson looks to be in for a scheduled stop. All this happening as the weather continues to fluctuate around here. Current track temperature is about 82 degrees on the surface, so not terribly hot, thankfully. Relatively grippy conditions for these cars. Those clouds coming overhead will help even more.
And this is such a big, long track. In the real world, I mean, Hey, Joe, what was it? It might have been the 24 hours of the Nürburgring about 2 or 3 years ago. Sun shining on one track, and then hail so bad on the other end they had to bring out the snowplows.
Wow, did they really?
Yeah, it had happened.
Goodness.
It was a thing. It was crazy.
Just unreal. Here's C. Love taking his scheduled stop. Remember, he ran into problems on lap 1 himself. Love returns in about 15th. You see him returning to the track down through the sweeping north curve. 21 minutes left to go on the clock. So this brings us a little bit of the strategy. As I said, not much that can fluctuate there. So let's jump over to third place. Desai and Fitterer still battling with one another. Desai, the final spot on the podium. Fitterer, who is in fourth, may not fight too hard. He currently is the leader in the Spec 2 race. So really doesn't need to fight unless he just wants a little bit more pride and a little bit more points.
And for you Dominique Burrow fans, he has completed his tow, gotten his fast repair, and has rejoined the race, but obviously not a lot further back.
Yeah, currently running 18th now that he's returned. He's actually right behind Jim McGill, who also finished his tow and got his free car. Let's take a glance at what it takes to be fast around here. Wonder if we could go on board with David Gaspers just to kind of watch. It always fascinates me to see what makes the difference between drivers around this track. And David Gaspers clearly has incredible pace over everyone. Let's watch on board just for a moment. Kesselchen now, where his foot is flat to the floor for quite a while.
We need to get
brave with those curves.
We need to get Sean to make us a little turn the volume up graphic or something for that next time. I think that'll be great.
Though not sure the SRF really is a car that would impress necessarily.
Well, you gotta start it somewhere.
Yeah. Now the Lotus 79, that thing screams. That would be one to use it with. This is called the Moot Curve, which translates to Bravery Corner. Doesn't really need as much bravery in the SRF, but boy, you get a fast car around this track and it will test that bravery.
Got a good battle now here between Jeff Jacobson and Edward Doherty for 9th and 10th. Both those guys trying to recover from some earlier issues. Now fighting hard with each other.
Jacobson running 8th, Doherty running 9th. This is also for Spec 2. This is for 3rd and 4th in that class. Jacobson is your leading car in the dark colors, and then the green and white is Edward Doherty in the number 294. We mentioned that Lotus 79, if you want an experience as well, it looks like Doherty not interested in using the swap around. He's going to give just a little shove to the back. If you want an interesting experience, take the Lotus 49 around the Nordschleife here in iRacing.
I'm good. I'm good.
It'll put the fear of God in you, as they like to say.
I was going to say put some hair on your chest, but that works too.
Yeah, either one. To Style Streka, and yeah, Edward Doherty not really interested in fighting too hard. He knows this is a long race to go.
Yeah, and just behind those two, another two guys that found themselves in some trouble earlier on trying to recover, Boslav and Zachary LeVay, both also fighting for position. So get a couple of two-car packs out there still.
Certainly are, though Boslav seems to got a fair bit of pace through this part because Zach LeVay lost a ton of time. He was within 0.2 of a second. And the number 223 car now 2 seconds behind. Ooh. That's the difference. Whenever we talk about a driver's track, I'd say this is the ultimate driver's track.
Oh, that's no lie.
Boslav making a difference out there. He runs down in 10th. Having started in 20th, he was one of the cars that did not get a lap time in. So where are our leaders? Are they getting ready to pit soon? Because Gaspers is just coming around out of the mini carousel. So he's only got a few more corners to go. This is back to Jacobsen and Doherty, running 8th and 9th out of Bruchen, up and over that crest. And then here is an awkward corner for you, ice curve. Another one with a blind apex, but it keeps climbing uphill. And then eventually you come back down to one of the few places where you can get four wheels off the ground at this track, into Flansgarden. There's a great shot from Dougie showing just that very thing happening.
It's just amazing how light these cars get on their wheels too through that section. I mean, if they were going any faster, they would be catching a lot of air, but they're going uphill in these things. They're only able to go about 108 miles an hour, but now, of course, we're hitting the part, back up to about 120, and David Gasper is right now 120 into that left-hander here right at the end of the straightaway.
All right, does he pit this time through? The DH driver ducks on in. Our current champion, last time out at Interlagos, unfortunately had an incident coming out of the pits. I'm trying to remember the exact reason. I think he had a technical fault or something that caused it. Hopefully we don't see that again. It can be a little bit narrow coming out of here. And also, yes, that is a gas pump in front of him. This is usually not meant for
and yes, it
racing
does
pits.
Hurt when you hit it.
Yes. The curbs as well. You can't hit those curbs. Gaspers is done. And
going back to that battle we were watching, Edward Doherty finally able to make the move here on Jeff Jacobsen. He kind of had to because Boss Slob is coming.
Yeah, he is indeed. You can see him in the background now. The gap only about a second between Slav and Jacobsen, so he's going to get a little bit of a pull. Most everybody in front of them is pitting. Sadro's gone back out. Desai just finished his stop. Donald Fitterer in the midst of his. Got Christopher Patterson in. Elson's finished his stop, so actually this is going to give us an idea of where he'll cycle back out, and it looks like 5th place for Steven.
Edward Doherty's going to figure, and Boslav figuring they're going around one more time. I think they had to take that pit stop earlier. Jeff Jacobsen, on the other hand, did not, so he is down pit road. That's going to break up that 3-car battle.
Yep, I suspect they took their free cars already, did they? Actually, or have they finished their stops?
Well, I know for sure Edward Doherty had to because he had a ton of damage after that contact with Jason Perry.
Oh, that's true. I forgot that was him who ran into him. Jacobsen finishes his out. The Midwest driver returns to the circuit. 13 laps to go. Or excuse me, 13 minutes to go, rather. Zach LeVay finishes his stop. David Gasper should come around and get the white flag next time he crosses the line.
All right, going back to that battle we've been watching because it's the best one on the racetrack. Boss Slob now making his way around Edward Doherty. Man, he got up there in a hurry. You're right. Boss Slob's pace here has been crazy, but now he's having to really fight side by side. That is not an easy place to go side by side, but both able to get off without any kind of contact. Boss Slob's going to take the position.
They were flirting with disaster, getting incredibly close. And we did see someone make contact with, I think it was Antonio Reese and another driver in that very section.
That's what I believe was part of what helped set off that big wreck there on the first lap.
Braking for Ehrenberg. We have a huge downhill into a valley. This is called the Foxhole, and then compression through here. Compression pretty literally because the car absolutely bottoms out at the bottom here where you get a ton of speed. back uphill and Oudenauer forced. Slob is ahead of Doherty, but now I think that Doherty's just going to try and ride on the coattails of the Benelux driver.
Yeah, because I think these guys still might have to make a pit stop. So, might want to hang close, but I mean, we'll see here. Either way, they're not going to have to take as much fuel as what Jeff Jacobson had to take, so they should be able to still be out in front of him when everything is said and done, but still, I still think they're going to have to make their way down. That 35% fuel there really kind of throws a wrench, especially when you place this big, because you can't never save enough for a full lap. So you've got to hit your marks, because if you miss it, you're not going to make it back around.
That's for sure. One thing you can do, though, is if you save fuel behind someone, you could have a shorter pit stop and leapfrog them.
This is always true. It's always true. I just don't think you could save enough for a full lap.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. They did send Scott Dixon around here, see if he can do it, maybe.
Right? Yeah, probably not. Right. Though. I mean, you'd have to be so, use that map and I don't know. You can see. I know that the Indy cars, of course, have mapped. The Ford GTs, the new Ford GTs, they have map settings he's able to use for gas.
I believe they do.
Remember. Yeah,
and he does drive that car. That's
GTs too much. Yeah.
Riding on board with Doherty, the New Yorker, is losing touch with Boss Slob, so even if he wanted to ride his coattails, unfortunately, it looks like the number 294 is trailing off and might have to settle for 8th.
Yeah, for what it's worth, Boss Slob is the second fastest car on the racetrack. Yeah, there's nobody faster than him right now other than David Gaspers.
If only he had gotten a qualifying time in, we probably could have seen a very different story. This is our leader that's the fastest car on track, David Gaspers. He's just come out of the carousel, now coming up to Hedwig Heights. Interesting note about Hedwig Heights is it was named after the wife of the track designer, the highest point on the circuit.
I think either way, this next time around, whether it be by time or by laps, he's going to get the white flag. So, we're just about a lap and a half to go, I believe, right?
We are, and he will indeed get the white flag. This is down through Ruchin. He's got 37 seconds over Fred Desai, who is in second place. We ride on board. There you see the gap on your screen between the two of them.
We missed that. Yeah, at some point, Sadro really felt it. Sadro just lost third, so he's lost second and third here this lap. I see quite a bit of damage on his car.
Oh, it happened in the carousel. This happened within the last 50 seconds. Let's see if we can get a replay.
Looks like in the carousel, he spun and didn't hit anything, so this happened before that. I'll go back and see if I can find it here.
Yeah, you're right. On the rear of the car, that even though he could have gotten some damage from the curb.
It was way back toward the beginning of the lap. Yeah, it's he just got a little hot and put it into the Armco on the side there. So that's where that damage came from, and it's causing him to bleed positions right now.
It's unfortunate. So probably won't get a replay of his first incident.
It wasn't anything
so
special.
Let's go
Literally
back live.
Rode the Armco for a little bit, beat up the car on the side of it. Wasn't even really hard contact, but it was enough to bend some stuff.
Well, that is really disappointing for Sadro. He's already being caught by Steve Elson. And even though it's 12 seconds between himself and Christopher Patterson, but depending on how damaged Sadro is, he could still be overtaken as far down as that. Let's see, where is Gaspers now? He's getting ready to take that white flag. He's on the Darener Hoa. Number 23 car. Said he wasn't going to fight for the championship this year. Now, he didn't have a good finish last time, so that would mean that he probably wouldn't there. But David looking to take a win today. He was our champion last season, finishing the the season out with 5 straight wins.
I gotta say about Fred to say is looking at his car and keeping track of who's had damage and who hasn't here today. He is the only car out there that has been completely clean from flag to flag as long as he can get past this next lap. You look at even David Gaspers, he's even got a little bit of damage on the right front. Fred to say, nothing, hasn't had anything this entire race, completely clean car. And that is a victory in amongst itself at this facility.
I'd agree with you on that one. You see our second place driver so far behind. Gaspers already took that white flag. We're still waiting for Fred to come across that same line, and he will here in just a few moments. Actually, rather curious if Sadro will come in. He's been steadily losing time on Elson, who got by him. And he is. I think he's going to take that spare car. So how much
They
time
need to
will
do
this
it
cost
quickly
him?
because here comes Christopher Patterson.
As well as Boss Slob right behind him, which we've seen. That's a driver you do not want to be behind you right now.
There we go. Very quick for Daniel Sadro. He's already back out. And Christopher Patterson will be a few seconds behind him.
The timing and scoring catches up. It'll be about 3 seconds behind. So it'll depend on it whether or not the 270 is quicker than Sadro, which I wouldn't bank on since Sadro qualified in 3rd. Oh, and Boss Slob in for that second stop. We forgot. Remember, he needed one more because he had to come in early.
Same with Doherty. Doherty was in there as well, but Doherty is still sitting there.
And
so maybe he didn't get his pit settings done right, so he's going to bleed positions as well.
Well, and Slob didn't even lose a position from his pit stop, so it didn't matter in the end.
He probably just needed a splash and go. In fact, there goes Doherty finally.
Doherty does lose spots. He's down to 11th. Let's check a little bit ahead of them. Remember Bob Kern? Well, Jeff Jacobson is now the one right behind Bob. And they are on the final lap, so this is all to play for. Down through into High Oaks. This is going to be one of those faster portions of the circuit. I'm actually curious because I'm not sure if they need to lift through Flugplatz, which is this big crest coming up after this kink. Let's take a listen. That was flat out through there. So effectively from High Oaks all the way up to here to Swedish Cross, you are all the way to the floor, and you can see the effect that has. Jeff Jacobson, who was looking like he was losing touch a little bit, is now all over the back of Bob Kern. This is, I think, our closest battle on track now.
It is.
So we'll have to keep an eye on this. Now, Elson could yet catch Fitterer. That will be for 3rd place. Donald got promoted because of the problems that Sadro had. And that won't be the first time that we'll have a Spec 2 driver finish on the overall podium. Out in our forest.
I don't want to leave it yet because we're not quite close to him crossing the line yet. But David Gaspers has a 40-something second lead on everybody. He hadn't let up at all. He's still pushing it down and still going fast, even though he's got this thing wrapped up pretty much as long as he can bring it across the line. But this is still the battle on the racetrack here between Kern and Jacobson.
Now, I'm going to make it sound more impressive than it actually is, just depending on whether or not people know the lap times around here. But all cars still driving are on the lead lap. Useless stat for you today. Slob did come back into the pits. He must have had another incident, which is... Yeah, I think he must have had a wreck somewhere, and I'm not sure we'll be able to get that replay. The number 25 should have had a much better result than that. That is severe disappointment.
Yeah, the entire right side of his car is just destroyed.
Now, I mentioned Elson and Fitterer. Well, Elson has now caught the 211. He is directly behind him. They're coming up through Kesselchen to the Moot Curve. So this will be a fascinating battle. And I'm not sure that Elson's going to want to sit by idly and let Fitterer take that spot. Up to the top of the hill now. Look at how close he's getting to the back of him. Making sure he knows he's there, yeah.
No pressure.
All he really has to do, though, is just sit with him, and I'd say wait until the Dariner Hoa.
Yeah, that's exactly what I would do. I mean, might as well, because if you pass him now, he's just going to get you back.
Absolutely. They're not too far behind Fred Desai, but Fred's got a 4-second gap back to Fitterer. He's really not their concern, unless Fred makes a mistake himself. Where is Gaspers right now?
He hasn't quite gone through the mini carousel yet here.
We're still watching this battle for third. So we jump back to Jacobsen and Kern. Again, this is a battle for 8th between these two. Jacobsen, the car that you see on your screen, we're riding on board with Kern. Up to the carousel. This is a corner that has given a lot of drivers trouble. Let's see how they handle it. Got to watch out for those bumps. Kern ducking it all the way down to the bottom of the banking, getting the power down coming off. Oh, and a big bobble from Jeff Jacobsen. That could be critical. Did he lose enough time that he now has lost the draft?
Right, your leader Gaspers is now through the mini carousel.
David Gaspers up at the front, through Gallows Hill, onto the Dariner Hoa. You say, it's not necessarily relaxing, but I think it is probably an enjoyable drive for him now, coming down this long, long straight, over a mile long that you're running along here. Gonna go through Antonius Beach, past the tourist entry, the tourist lap entry that you'll see there on the right. 50 seconds ahead of Fred Desai and the number 76. The DH driver running at something of a home course for him. And the number 23 who just has to brake one more time. Coming up into Hohenrad. Then into Tiergarten. All he has left is turn 13 yet to go. He didn't get that opening win, but round 2 is going to give him the victory. David Gaspers, your winner here today at the Nürburgring.
Gave me a little bit of heart attack when he just clipped the Armco right there going through the final corner.
He doesn't need that car anymore.
Nah. Here comes Desai. Desai still has to hold off the likes of Federer and Elson, who are still going at it, but I think he's going to get it here, Joe.
Yeah, he is way too far away for them to draft up to him. But Elson is close enough that he's gaining on Fitterer, and I think he's timed it right. He's got a head of steam as he goes by under Antonius Beach. Fitterer has no response. He could maybe try and send one in desperately into Tiergarten, but I'm not sure that we're going to see that from the number 211 as they break for the corner. Up ahead of them, Desai takes second place. And Elson coming through the final turn, going to get a nicely earned podium, having started this race in 11th. Disappointment for Sadra, the number 51, getting only a top 5, having started in 3rd. Now, Jacobsen and Kern have swapped positions, and this is not good news for Jacobsen, because he's leading down the Dariner Hoa only temporarily. Here goes Kern. He's going to get by.
So now is when you got to slip right back in behind him, try to get a little bit more momentum, and see if you can attack again.
He's going to try. I was just going to say, I don't think Kern, like we saw with Elson. Oh, this is going to be tense if they have a side-by-side duel into these last few corners, and Kern gives up the ghost. Just wants to finish the race.
Yeah, Kern's going to spin. Is he going to be able to get straightened out by the time Love gets there?
Oh, but he's got to back the car up, and Love's going to get by. If he hadn't have had the pit entry there, he would have been able to pull back around and finish. Bob Kern, unfortunately, 2 positions lost in just the final corners. LeVay follows him home. You've got no other battles out on track. It'll be McGill, Solblum, Wobolt, and Bureau. The last car to bring it home will be Tom Gradwell. So why don't we send it to break here on the Global Sim Racing channel? We'll come back after this with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews. If you stick around on screen, you'll see all the upcoming races here on the GSRC. Welcome back to the Nürburgring. The Nordschleife hosted round 2 here for the Weekend Warriors, and David Gaspers was able to come away with the win. It was a big gap at the line, 52 seconds. Dominated the field. Fred Desai managed to come home in second after starting 6th. And then how about Steve Elson? 11th on the grid to a podium finish. He got it the final few corners ahead of our Spec 2 winner. Donald Fitterer finishes in 4th today, the same place he finished last week. Continues to rack up points. Daniel Sadro finishes P5 after he unfortunately had a late race incident, threw away potential podium. Christopher Patterson finishes 6th after starting 14th. Similar positions gained for Ramon Regalado from 15th to 7th. Jeff Jacobson gets a P8 with C Love finishing 9th, getting 1 spot at the final corner. Poor Bob Kern. He had to get the car turned around. He finishes in 10th. Adam?
Yeah, not only loses that spot in the overall, but loses a spot in the class battle as well. And of course, Zachary LeVay, not too far behind that, but couldn't capitalize on Kern's mistakes, so he's going to come home in 11th. Matt Bloom coming home in 12th. Dominique Barreau, we saw his problems. He's going to bring it in 13th. Jim McGill and Gary Woolbutt. Woolbutt pushed McGill across the line, so a little bit of sportsmanship going on there, so both of them finished the race. Tom Gradwell, Paul Hickey, Boss Slob, Edward Doherty, and Estenume is going to round out your top 20.
Flavio Saturnino will take 21st. He was a DNF, unfortunately. Michael Shaw, 22nd. Jason Perry, 23rd, and James DeBoer, 24th. Antonio Reese, first lap incident for him, puts him in 25th. And Spicer was a did not start today. We've got our winner ready to talk to us, David Gaspers, who certainly made it look like it was an easy task, but I doubt anything is ever easy here around the ring. David, 50-plus seconds at the line ahead of the next car back. It seemed like you didn't stop pushing the whole way.
To be honest, I wasn't pushing that hard. I just tried to be as safe as possible without driving too slow.
We did see a number of cars seem to have probably, I'd say, the most problems working their way through the carousel. This car is known for not liking bumps. Is there anything you can do to counteract it, trying to make it more compliant through there?
It's important that you keep a steady speed through there, and at some point there's a bump that's marked with a red line crossing through the banking. And once you cross that, you can pretty much go flat.
Well, you certainly seem to handle it better than others. You told us last season that you weren't going to be competing for the championship, but you showed up last week and you were fighting for the win before your unfortunate incident, and now you've taken a win. So will you just be taking off later in the season, or what's the story?
I don't know yet. Don't really care about the championship. I just want to race the tracks I like and have some fun.
All right. Well, looked like you had a little bit of fun out there today. Congratulations on a victory, and hope to see you a little bit more.
Thanks.
That was David Gasper's winner here today at the ring. Up next, we have Daniel Sadro, who comes home with a top 5. But Dan, I have to imagine that you're probably a little bit disappointed with that. We did see that you ran into some trouble and had to take your spare car at one point.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely disappointed. Although I guess I should just be happy that I started the week not really knowing the track, and to at least finish the race, top 5 even better. But just to finish the race is, I think, an accomplishment for me that I have to pat myself on the back for.
So, had you driven here much before this week, or is this your first time competing here?
This is my first week of competition here. I mean, I've driven this track in, like Gran Turismo, whatever number it was. But this was really the first real competitive week I've had at this track.
So that brings me to a question we talked about before the race, that for some drivers, part of the challenge is simply memorizing the layout. Did you have to do any of that in leading up to this, or did you have a pretty good idea of where things were?
Oh, no, I absolutely had to do that. I was kind of joking that I knew the first 6 kilometers pretty well, but after it was a mess. But just throughout the week, I was able to learn the sequences. Oh, okay, I finished this corner. This is coming up next. And yeah, it took some time, but I was able to, I feel, accomplish it mostly.
Well, now that you've actually run competitively here, what are your feelings on the track? Would you like to return? Are you bitten by the bug?
Oh, absolutely. I'm part of an endurance racing group, and I was dreading the Nürburgring 24 hours, but I don't think I'm dreading it anymore. I'm looking forward to being able to do that, and I hope we come back here in the Spec Racer Ford too. It's an interesting combination.
Attaboy. I always like when this track gets new converts because I myself enjoy it. Well, commiserations on not managing the podium, but still congratulations on a finish and even in the top 5, sir.
Hey, thanks. Thanks, guys, for everything you do.
That was Daniel Sadro. And I think we've got one more to talk to. This is our winner in the Spec 2, Donald Fitterer. That's 2 4th places in a row for Donald. I have to imagine that you're pretty pleased with yourself.
I am incredibly happy. I can't believe I had such a good placing here.
Now, the last lap, you saw Steve Elson start to close in on you. Did you plan to try and fight him, or do you mostly think about Spec 2, and when you get a Spec 1 driver, do you not battle him too hard? What's your philosophy on that?
Well, Steven came so quickly past me. I was happy that he had done so well, because he ran like an 18 lap and mine was 8:16. So there was no real reason to try to compete against him because we're in different categories, and I was so happy he did well.
Yeah, well, I'd say you should be plenty happy for yourself for doing as well as you are. I had to clarify on the point screen that our top 5 didn't include the overall points because you are in the top 5 and you're going to stay in the top 5. In fact, you might even be in the top 3 now. I'll have to check. This is an incredible season. It seems you've taken the place of Alejandro Lero in terms of the overachiever from Spec 2.
Well, I'm actually really trying hard to win the Spec 2 this time. And Alejandro deserved it last season, and I didn't get enough races in. So I said, okay, this season I'm going to.
So coming up next week, actually, I need to check my notes here, see where we're headed for that one real quick. But we talked about the difference in tracks in the first broadcast, how we've got a lot of different kinds. And next one goes the complete reverse. Tsukuba at the 2K Moto circuit. Have you tried Tsukuba yet, especially in the SRF?
I think I've done 1 or 2 races there. It's an incredibly hard track, completely different from this one, of course. But yes, getting consistent on that track is going to be difficult.
All right. Well, we look forward to seeing how you perform there. Again, congratulations on the win in Spec 2 and a top 4 overall.
Well, thank you very much. Shout out to David Gaspers for his setup, and he really helped me. This beginning of this week, I was doing 830s, and to get down to an 816 is just incredible for me.
Well, that's fantastic. That was Donald Fitterer, 4th place today, and that just tells you how friendly this community is. David Gaspers, despite being as fast as he is not afraid to share his setups with other drivers. So with that, we're going to give some thank yous before we go. Of course, thank you to our sponsor, the Hallett Race Shop. They, of course, are sponsoring this full season. They own the Hallett Race Track out in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Give them a visit if you're close enough nearby. And a big thank you to IESN. iRacing brought us on for another season of coverage on the iRacing Esports Network. Make sure and subscribe to them by clicking the big red button on their YouTube page. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast listed here on your screen. Additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the team today, Adam, Sean, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. We're also on social media, on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook, Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. As mentioned, we're going to Tsukuba in a week's time. That'll be Sunday, March 31st at 3:45 p.m. Eastern. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.